We're in the Hiawatha National Forest for an overnighter at Mckeever Cabin.
Then panning for gold on the shores of Lake Superior. 9 million acres of forest, 1,700 miles of continuous shoreline, 4,300 lakes, 12,000 miles of streams, more than 300 waterfalls, 15 counties, 2 time zones, and 1 area code. Welcome to the Upper Peninsula. Welcome to 906 Outdoors. .906 Outdoors is brought to you by Cooking Wild Seasonings. Make it fresh, make it yours. This past week's travels took Patty and I to Mckeever Lake. Mckeever is located about halfway up Highway 13, right about in the center of the western Hiawatha National Forest. The 132-acre lake supports a population of largemouth and smallmouth bass, pike, and bluegills, and it was stocked with muskies back in 1990. The unique feature that brought us to Mckeever Lake, Mckeever Cabin, which is where we would spend the night. The plan was simple. We'd hike in, hit the lake, catch some fish for a late afternoon fish fry, and just basically spend the rest of the day relaxing. Now, I tend to be overly optimistic when I set out on adventures of this sort. I picture a nice sunshiny day on a gorgeous UP lake with a stringer of bluegills trailing alongside my canoe ready for a pan of hot oil. Once we get those bluegills out of the way, we'll just casually tour around the lake, satisfying some much-needed fishing time by catching bass one after another, maybe even a big pike. While that's certainly all possible, it's probably not realistic, at least not in hindsight. But again, the plan was pretty simple. Not really much that can go wrong. Well, we did hit a couple of bumps in the road, and we'll need to backtrack a bit for a look at what it took to get to the point where we are, sitting in this canoe. First stop was Elmer's County Market in Escanaba, where we dropped off some seasoning and fish batter products and got the first hint that things may go a bit south. The good news is, in spite of knowing nothing could get in the way of catching at least some bluegill for dinner, I activated the backup plan. Maybe, no. There it is. From there we were off to the Hiawatha. Oh, the bad news? It was about the time we reached Highway 13 I realized that I apparently somehow managed to leave my small camera on the back of the truck, which put it somewhere between Elmer's and here. After driving past the sign to the cabin by 8 miles or so, and then back, we did get on the right track. Our journey began an hour later than I wanted. Add in some time to backtrack to get cell service to call my buddy John at Elmer's, and time to find the road, and time to stop and pick up night crawlers that I forgot to get while we were on our way, would leave us almost not enough time to fish. The trail to the cabin is about 2 miles off of Highway 13. We, now hurrying, unloaded the truck and loaded the canoe. The hike in is only about a quarter of a mile. The mosquito population is in no danger of extinction in this neck of the woods. It wasn't long and we were at our one night home away from home and ready to hit the water. By the time I dropped the canoe, Patty was at the door and ready to move in. I think one of the most memorable parts of this trip were Patty's words, "Please tell me you have the combination for this door." Oops. I can't thank the previous tenants enough for forgetting to latch one of the windows. I seem to find over and over that on trips such as this, my ill-fated optimism is slowly crushed by events brought on by my own hand. Today's show is brought to you in part by Rapid River Knife Works, home of Michigan's largest custom knife factory showroom. Mckeever Cabin was constructed in 1991 through a partnership between the Forest Service and Hiawatha Log Homes of Munising, along with considerable volunteer work. It sits on a knoll surrounded by evergreens and hardwoods overlooking the lake. The modest amenities are perfectly suited to its peaceful backwoods location. I already know I'm coming back here sometime in the near future for more than one night. Time to fish. We were now somehow over 4 hours late, but still had high hopes of going home with that tenderloin still in the cooler.
Yay! They're swallowed.
How hard can it be to catch a handful of eater-sized bluegills? Little scutters. We were not long and my fears of not catching dinner began to overshadow my optimism for an early limit. Then, dinner for two, all in one fish. The question now arose, when is a smallmouth not catch and release? When you're on a remote lake and craving a fish fry maybe. Deep fried smallmouth. Doesn't sound that bad. This would solve my fish fry dilemma with one set of fillets. Well, that answers that question. Once again, by my own hand. Still time to catch some gills, though. Yeah, and that was that. A warm fire in the cabin to dry out, and it was time for dinner. The intermittent rain showers took away any hopes of cooking over the fire pit. But I actually did prepare for that possibility. I came here with a craving for a fish fry, and I'm leaving with a craving for a fish fry. But the alternative wasn't terrible. 906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Blades Bait and Tackle, your year-round connection to fishing Bait Enoch. By morning the rain was gone, and through the front door from my cozy sleeping bag I could see the sun beginning to light the sky. Pretty hard to resist being part of that. On a morning like this, in a spot like this, on a lake like this, whether or not I catch a single fish is insignificant. Which is a good thing, since I didn't catch a single fish. After some R&R on the water, it was time to head back to the cabin for a hot cup of coffee and some breakfast. That chicken got her money's worth. All in all, the trip was great. The mosquitoes were plentiful, but not bad by the cabin, and none at all on the lake. If we hadn't left an hour late, lost the camera, backtracked for cell service, and passed up the road, we'd have had much more time to fish before the rain set in, which I'm sure would have supplied us with that stringer of fish fry that I planned on. But I guess a steak dinner is okay in a pinch. It'd have been nice if I'd thought about bringing the door combination, but I guess that worked out okay too. Oh, and a big thanks for John and Shelley at Elmer's for finding my camera in the parking lot. Yeah, we had a few bumps in the road, but it's pretty hard not to enjoy time in the outdoors, at a cabin in the heart of the Hiawatha. The UP is blessed with so many spots like this, places you can go for any level of adventure you like. Places you can go where you're the only one there, where you have an entire lake to yourself. I have to say thanks to the Forest Service folks who take care of the Hiawatha. It's pristine, it's clean, and so well preserved in its natural state, and an absolute UP treasure. Thanks for making trips like this possible. .906 Outdoors is brought to you in part by Christ, your Northwoods neighborhood store. The Upper Peninsula might not be the first place you think of when talking about prospecting for gold, but indeed it's here. Gold that has been pulverized by glaciers unpredictably washes up on the shores of Lake Superior in varying degrees and locations. In 2009, the DNR passed new rules allowing individuals to prospect for gold on state-owned lands on a recreational basis.
So when we start out looking for the gold, we'll do a few sample pans to see what kind of dirt we've got. And to pan it, you're simply classifying the material by weight, because the gold's so much heavier than everything else. Even though it's extremely small, it will tend to settle to the bottom of the pan. So as we classify the material, we'll then slough the lighter material off the top, and that will get us down to our concentrated material. We always pan into a little tub so we're not using the lake, and so that if we accidentally tip the pan, we don't lose any gold we may have collected in there. And a lot of people, when they start panning, will tend to be very, very careful to not run any gold out. But from what I've found, there's no way to keep it all in the pan. We try and keep as much as we can in there. You'll see when we classify this, the lighter white and yellow sand will come to the top, and that's a good indication that you're classifying it properly, that every time you do it, you'll see that lighter material come up to the surface. All of the gold that we get here along Lake Superior is glaciated gold that's come down from Canada. It's been pulverized by the glaciers for the last few millennia, so it's gotten crushed up and is quite small, but it's actually pretty plentiful. When we're looking for it here along the beach, we'll look into the black sands that you see which are actually a mixture of hematite, magnetite, and iron sand. And all of those heavier materials hold the gold. The gold's actually pretty transient here on the beach. The wave action can affect it day to day as to whether a spot's good one day and not so good the next. There's actually gold along most of the shore of Lake Superior. Some of the better concentrations, though, tend to run from the Two-Hearted River on the east to Grand Marais on the west. We've got one little speck in this pan, but that's an indication we're in the right spot if we're pulling out pieces like this. And this is a small piece of gold. It's the size of about the size of a flour grain. But that's what we tend to get on the beach from the gold that's been pulverized by the glaciers. We found a little bit of gold with our test pan, so now we're going to bring our sluice down and see if we can get a little bit more. The setup we have is a recirculatory system to try to do our best to follow the regulations that the state of Michigan set. We can't have a system that draws or pumps water directly into or out of Lake Superior. So we have a system set up here with a small commercial style sluice that runs a bilge pump out of a boat connected to a 12-volt battery. We collect all the tailings in the bucket so they don't gum the pump up, and then the water just recirculates through it. If you're going to be out prospecting, make sure you check with the DNR to make sure you're following all the regulations that they set for. This end, if you see some of the reddish hue in it, it's the iron. And actually almost all of this black sand is a magnetite. And you can tell that as you're prospecting it, you can actually hold a magnet to it and the sand will stick right to the magnet. We're trying to just get this thin top layer for two reasons. One, so we don't disturb too much of the beach. And two, the black sand tends to be in layers only about 1/4 inch deep. And then when you get down to the lighter sand that's underneath it, it won't hold the gold. One of our goals when we're prospecting like this is to make sure we're as gentle on the beach as we can. We want to make sure everybody can come out and enjoy this. The rule I have is try to never do any more environmentally than a kid would building a sand castle. And when we're done running these tailings, we'll actually replace the dirt from right where we got it. Once we've got the dirt collected, we'll run it through the sluice, which is lined with a ribbed rubber mat. And that mat will allow the heavier material, specifically the gold, to settle out into the bottom of those ribs. And it'll allow the lighter material, the sand, rock, and other quartz-based stuff that we don't want, to run down into the bucket, where we can then replace it right back onto the beach. And you kind of have to learn through trial and error based on the sluice that you have, amount of water flow that you have, how steep you need to set it, and how fast you can run the dirt through it. And it's all a experimentation process. There's no real good rule for it. If you come out prospecting on Lake Superior, there isn't one hot spot to stay with. If you look along the beach with the wave action and the erosion, the beach can change from day to day, and so can the spots with the gold concentration. Whereas great one day may not be so great the next, and where you weren't finding any before, you might find a whole bunch the next time out. Last summer when my son and I were walking the beach looking for agates. We happened to cross a pretty good patch of the black sand. And when I looked at it and realized it was the heavier material, I told him I figured there might be some gold in it. And we both sort of laughed about it. Well, we got about 200 yards further down the beach, and there were 3 people with shovels and a couple sluices. And at that point, it seemed more intriguing than humorous. So we met up with them later and saw what they had collected and realized it was a viable hobby and just a fun way to spend a day on the lake. Today wasn't our best collection day. We only found a few flecks. Sometimes when you're getting a little bit better dirt, this is the result you can get from about 10 gallons of beach dirt. Run that down to just a little bit of concentrates and there'll be a few hundred flecks of gold in there. They're all quite small, just flour grain size, but they add up and look nice in a little vial if you can show off to your friends. One of the rules the state sets is that you're only allowed a 1/4 ounce of gold per person per year. And I think even if you were out here every day, all day, during the summer, you'd never get there. So it's not something you'll ever get rich doing, but when you're on a lakeshore like this, on a day like this, it really doesn't matter.
Feel free to join us on Facebook or visit us at 906outdoors.com. Thanks for watching, and we invite you to join us next week for another adventure right here on 906 Outdoors.